Today I want to bring you all back 20 years to the month of May 2024. There was a family, the Chatuel family, who lived in Gush Katif in the Gaza Strip, one of the thousands of Jewish families that lived in Gaza from the 1970s until they were expelled in the year 2005. Well, in May 2024, Tali Chatuel and her 4 daughters were driving through Gush Katif, out towards Beersheba, I believe, and they were going to be going house to house together with tens of thousands of other Israelis, like myself at the time, to knock on doors and talk to members of the Likud party to convince and vote against what we were warning back then as the disastrous disengagement plan from Gaza. Just bringing you back to those times, Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon was basically being forced by American President George W. Bush II to pull out of Gaza. That really doesn't get much time, that story of how it wasn't his idea, but it was forced by the American administration. But that is what a prominent rabbi in Israel was told by Ariel Sharon himself. But again, it hardly gets talked about in the media, so most people don't even know that. But yes, the disengagement from Gaza, the expulsion of close to 10,000 Jews from 21 Jewish communities in Gaza in the summer of 2005 was an American policy forced upon us. And so much so that Israeli Prime Minister Sharon was scared about the consequences had Israel not done so. And just to understand the political situation at the time, the elections at that time were between Ariel Sharon of the Likud party and Avram Mitzna of the Labor Party. Avram Mitzna campaigned on pulling out of Gaza and destroying the 21 Jewish communities, and Ariel Sharon and the Likud campaigned on no way, we're not taking any Jew out of Gaza, we're there forever. And he had the line saying, Din Netzarim Kedin Tel Aviv, that the law for the Jewish community of Gaza, of Netzarim, is the same as the law for Tel Aviv, meaning we're not going anywhere, not from Tel Aviv and not from Netzarim. That is why people voted for him, and yet he made a 180-degree turn after being voted in, and people didn't understand why. So now you have a bigger understanding. It was basically forced upon us by the Bush administration, with consequences had we not done so. So, May 2024, one of the things that people in Israel were trying to do to stop this disastrous plan from happening, and again, we were warning, if we would pull out of Gaza, that would allow Gaza to be turned into a terror launch pad, where they would launch rockets on all of Israel, they would launch terror attacks on all of Israel, where Israelis would be butchered by terrorists. That's what we were warning. And at the time, the Israeli mainstream media was making fun of us. Israeli politicians and IDF generals were saying, don't worry, if they shoot one rocket, we're going to go in and stop them. We won't let them do any terror attacks. And that's how they sold it to the Israeli people of why it was the best thing to do. And then scaring them that us settlers in Judea and Samaria and Gaza who were against it, and us right-wingers, that we were enemies of peace, and creating us as the enemy in order to get more support. Oh, those are the bad guys against it because they're against peace. Well, you got to support this because this is going to be about bringing peace. So one of the things that we were doing at the time to stop this plan was within the Likud party. We pushed for a vote of the Likud membership, that if a majority of the vote of the Likud membership voted against this horrendous Gaza disengagement plan, that would stop Ariel Sharon, the prime minister, from being able to push it forward, because the party would be voting against him from doing that. And we were going house to house, literally knocking on doors. I was there knocking on doors, convincing Likud members why it was disastrous to vote against the plan. We ended up succeeding. Majority of the Likud members voted against the plan, and it was a big embarrassment for Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, and he ended up doing something totally undemocratic and ignored the party vote of the membership of the party and went through with the plan anyway. Totally undemocratic. There was a referendum. He promised to do the referendum, to follow the results of the referendum. which was also the correct, not just moral, but democratic thing to do. And then again, because of pressure from America, he totally threw the referendum results out the window and pushed forward, and we all know the history. He went through with it. Tali Chatuel and her 4 daughters were on their way to Beersheba, I think, to take part with the tens of thousands of Israelis and knock on people's doors and convince them to vote against the Gaza disengagement plan in this internal Likud party referendum. Their husband was already doing the knocking on doors, or he was already at work, whatever. He wasn't with them. It was Tali, the mother, and the 4 daughters, and she was pregnant with their 5th at the time. While driving through the Gaza Strip, Tali and her 4 daughters were brutally murdered by Arab Muslim terrorists who were hiding behind a house that was right next to the road that the Israeli army had planned to destroy because it was a security problem, because they knew it could be used. It was used plenty of times by terrorists to hide and do terror attacks. And unfortunately, Israel's Supreme Court ruled that it was illegal for them to take down that house, and it was continued to be used as a hiding place for terrorists. So basically, it's Israel's Supreme Court is responsible for the brutal murder of Tali Chatuel, a pregnant woman with her 5th child, and her 4 daughters on that day. I think it was May 2nd, 2004, 20 years ago, Yud Aleph Iyar in the Hebrew calendar. Why am I talking to you about this right now? Because I want everyone to understand, 1, the context, 2, that what we experienced on October 7th is nothing new. We've had Israeli innocent Jews murdered, massacred, in cold blood, not just on October 7th, not just in 2004, but going back 100 years to the 1920s and to the 1930s of Arab Muslims massacring innocent Jews in the streets, in their homes, across the land of Israel. There was no state of Israel in the 1920s and the 1930s. There were no settlements in Judea and Samaria. There was no occupation. There was no apartheid, meaning all those lies that the Western liberal-minded world gives excuses for the terror that these Arab Muslims use against us. They weren't even called Palestinians back in the 1920s and the 1930s because all the Palestinians were Jews back then. Just go to the media at the time, go to the New York Times at the time. Every reference to Palestinians referred to the Jews who lived under the British mandate of Palestine. The Arabs were called Arabs. All these things are lies. They've been killing us out of a religious ideology to kill Jews and not allow us to live here in our ancestral homeland. They've been doing it since the 1920s and 1930s. Anyone who thinks there's peace possible with a fake invented people called Palestinians, no. Because those Arab Muslims, they're killing us because of a religious reason. The Palestinian identity is fake, created by the KGB, Soviet Union in the 1960s in order to destroy Israel. And it just gives people excuses for all of the violence and the terror that is used against us. So October 7th is not something new. October 7th is a culmination of 100 years of too many people in the world and too many Jews and too many Israeli leaders and military leaders ignoring the reality of our 100 years of living together with these Arab Muslims, that they always try to kill us, and it's for religious reasons. It's because of their Islamic ideology. Not every Muslim believes in it, but hundreds of millions do, and that's a problem. It's a problem for Jews. It's a problem for non-Muslims all over the world, because they say, first they go after the Saturday people, then they go after the Sunday people. They're after all of you, so we're on the front lines. Now, I want to show you a shirt that I wore on August 18th, 2005. Now, I'm a man, so I don't remember what I wore yesterday. How do I know this is the shirt I wore on August 18th, 2005? Because August 18th, 2005 is the date that the Israeli army came in to expel all of the Jews in the Jewish community of the Gaza Strip called Netzer Chazani, where I was trying to help them stop the expulsion from happening. And this is the shirt I wore on that day. How do I know it's the shirt I wore on that day? 1, because I kept it. 2, because I ripped it. I ripped it as a sign of Jewish mourning. The Jewish land of Israel was being destroyed. A Jewish community in the land of Israel was being destroyed. Jews being expelled from their homes. That's a day of mourning. And I ripped my shirt as a sign of Jewish mourning. And also at the time I had these stickers on my shirt that I was wearing, both on the front and on the back. And it says in Hebrew, Golani Shali Lo Megaresh Yehudi, Kavod. Golani is one of the units in the Israeli army. I served in the Golani Brigade, infantry units. It's like the Marines in the Israeli army. And this is a sticker that says, Golani, my Golani, we don't expel Jews. Honor, right? Because we were trying to get the word out for fellow soldiers not to take part in this immoral expulsion of Jews, which would not be just a disaster defensively, security-wise for Israel, but it would be a moral stain on their souls. And today it is. There are plenty of soldiers who took part in the expulsion who today totally regret it and have a hole in their hearts for having been part of expelling fellow Jews from their homes. So we warned everybody. We warned everybody. Disaster would come from destroying 21 Jewish communities in Gaza and expelling 10,000 Jews from their homes. People don't remember that the Jewish communities in the Gaza Strip were re-established. Why do I say re-established? Because Jews lived there in the 1920s, and then the British basically kicked us out because they couldn't defend us from the violence of the Arab Muslims in Gaza. So we returned in the 1970s after the Jewish state of Israel liberated the Gaza Strip in the miraculous Six-Day War in 1967. So we established Jewish communities. It was a left-wing labor government that established the Jewish communities because they understood we needed to have Jewish communities there in order to protect Israel. It was for security. Only by having a civilian presence did the labor government, the left-wing labor government, knew that the army would be able to control the area, because a military presence can only stay in an area if there's a civilian presence there, its own civilian presence, to allow it then to provide security against the enemy civilians. So it was a labor government. It was Yitzhak Rabin himself, a labor prime minister back in the early 1970s, who was at the groundbreaking ceremony of Netzer Chazani, the community that I was at in the summer of 2005 to help the families try to stop the expulsion and destruction of Jewish communities in Gaza from happening. It was a left-wing labor government. People don't know this today, that established the Jewish communities in Gaza to help protect Israel as a security measure. And they specifically set up the communities in 3 strategic areas of the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is a small area. All of the land of Israel is smaller than the state of New Jersey. The Gaza Strip is smaller than a county of New Jersey. But it's a strip of land. So the state of Israel, the labor government, established 3 lines of Jewish communities on the north, in the center, and in the south, to then be able to allow the army to control the Gaza Strip, which in a sense is what the army is doing again today. Right now they have a whole strip between the center and the north of the Gaza Strip, cutting it off, allowing it to control and do what it wants to do in the Gaza Strip today. It's insane. The army today is doing what they erased, what the horrendous Gaza disengagement, what I call the expulsion, erased in 2005. We had 10,000 Jews living in Gaza. We had the army being able to protect Israel by being there in Gaza together with the civilians. And then the decision was made, because of pressure from the U.S. government, sound familiar, to expel all those Jews, destroy all 10,000 Jews, destroy the 21 Jewish communities, to try to bring peace with the Arab Muslims. And today, we see what October 7th brought. And back then I was being interviewed by the news. I was acting like a informal spokesperson for the Gush Katif, for the Gaza communities, because I was an English speaker. So I was being interviewed by the New York Times, France, Voice of America, all over the place. And they were asking me, what's going on? Why are you doing this? I'm like, what do you mean, why are we doing this? If Israel pulls out of the Gaza Strip and destroys these Jewish communities, number one, the world seeing Jews expelling Jews from homes and destroying Jewish communities will lead to a rise in anti-Semitism all over the world. This is what I was saying in 2005. Because when the haters of Jews in the world, and there are plenty of them, see Jews doing bad things to Jews and us looking weak because we're doing bad things to ourselves, that leads to an uptick in anti-Semitism. It's just a natural action and reaction. I said, besides that, in terms of Israel's going to be less safe. There are going to be rockets shot at us from Gaza. There are going to be terror attacks from Gaza. We're going to be attacked. I was saying this, we were saying this back in 2005. Right? These people are losing their homes. They're losing their lives, their communities, their businesses. That's just their own personal. Then the national, all the Jewish people are going to be less safe. And then the global Jewish community are going to be less safe because anti-Semitism is going to go up because we're looked at as being weak, destroying our own communities, expelling Jews from their own homes. Unfortunately, everything I was warning about back then came true. And no one should say, oh my God, they woke up on October 7th. All they have to do, 20 years back, May 2nd, 2004, Tali Chatuel and her 4 daughters brutally murdered while driving the roads in the Gaza Strip. And I want to put everything into context, and I'll end with this. Because when I served in the army in 1993, my mandatory service, I served in the Gaza Strip. I served in Gaza City. I was the last unit to pull out of Gaza City. Guess what? They had no rockets. They had no guns. All they had in 1993 were rocks. They used to throw rocks at us in 1993. And then they decided to do the Oslo Peace Accord and hand Gaza to be the civilian control under the Palestinian Authority with their own army that they call a police force of guns. And then Hamas got control. And then Hamas, Palestinian Authority, was given on a silver platter the Gaza Strip by Israel in the 2005, August 2005. And then Hamas had a military coup and brutally murdered, throwing them off of rooftops, the Palestinian Authority officials in 2007. Anyone who says, oh, let's hand the Palestinian Authority back control of Gaza, we did that already. It was a failure. Hamas killed them. And if you think like if you just kill all the Hamas people today, that's not going to happen again, no. This is the ideology within Islam. Even if you kill all the official military leaders of Hamas, there are going to be more people, whether they call themselves Hamas, they call themselves Islamic Jihad, they call themselves Muslims who love teddy bears. They're still going to kill their fellow Arab Muslims in order to kill Jews. And the Palestinian Authority will help them kill Jews. But they kill themselves. And again, I love listening to Professor Mordechai Kedar, who I interview every once in a while. And he goes, people are stupid thinking you can make peace with the Arabs. They don't have peace with themselves. Peace is impossible with people if they can't make peace with themselves. They're killing each other. Who gave you the fantasy that you can make peace with them if they can't even make peace with themselves? Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, they're supposedly both the same people, right? Even though they're not, but that's a different video. They can't rule themselves. They can't live peacefully with each other. They kill each other, and we're supposed to make peace with them, and that they're going to protect us? Let them be in charge of Judea and Samaria. Let them be in charge of Gaza, and then we'll be able to be safe? No. I mean, it's insane. The Biden administration wants to hand over, the Obama, Biden, Blinken administration wants to hand over Gaza to the Palestinian Authority. Right now, the Israeli army is killing Palestinian Authority terrorists in Judea and Samaria. The Palestinian Authority has no control. They're a terrorist organization. They support terrorism. They pay terrorists. So they want us to create the same insanity, violence, terror that exists today in Judea and Samaria and replicate that as a solution for Gaza to replace Hamas? No, folks. The Jewish people in Israel have woken up. We know Palestinian Authority are terrorists. We know no self-rule for Arab Muslims. The only solution is Israel in control of Judea and Samaria, sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, sovereignty in Gaza, Jews living back in Gaza. The only Arab Muslims allowed to live in Judea and Samaria are Gaza. This is the solution. When we're going to get to this, I don't know, but this is the solution. And it's going to happen. I just can't tell you when. The only solution is the only Arab Muslims allowed to live in Judea and Samaria or Gaza are those who agree to live peacefully with us. Any Arab Muslim who agrees with the ideology of killing Jews and destroying the Jewish state of Israel, they can't live there. Would you want someone who supports destroying you and killing you to living with you as a citizen? No. No, that's the solution. That's the only solution. Every Arab Muslim who supports killing Jews and destroying the Jewish state of Israel leaves to live somewhere else. There are plenty of Arab Muslim countries in the Middle East that agree with their ideology. They can't live in Judea and Samaria. They can't live in Gaza. That's the solution. Now, it seems like unrealistic. How that's going to happen? Will the world let it? Guys, I'm not here to tell you how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen. I'm here to tell you to stand up for truth and morality and to say what the true solution is. That's the only solution. The only way it's going to happen is if more people talk about it and it's accepted as, yeah, that really makes sense. That's the only solution. The more people talk about it, the more organizations talk about it, the more politicians talk about it, the more chance it's going to happen. But if we don't talk about it, they say, no, it's not realistic, it's not a solution. Oh, and giving over Gaza to the Palestinian Authority is realistic? No, that's suicidal. That's genocidal. That's switching one terrorist group for another terrorist group. They all want to kill us and destroy Israel. The whole cause called Palestine is about killing Jews and destroying Israel. The two-state solution is unrealistic. It's delusional. It's genocidal. The two-state delusion is allowing them to have more power and more international recognition to kill us and destroy us. That's not realistic. Realistic peace is those people who want to live in peace can live in peace with us. And those who don't want to live in peace with us, who support killing us, no longer live amongst us. That's the only solution. There is no other solution. We have to repair the damage done by the Gaza disengagement that destroyed 21 Jewish communities and expelled 10,000 Jews from their homes in Gaza. We have to repair the damage done by the Oslo Accords that legitimized the existence of a fake people called Palestinians that have no history, that have no claim to our homeland. That's what we have to do. It's up to us. And it's up to us by spreading the truth and by talking the truth. And we correct those horrific mistakes that have endangered not just Jews in Israel, but endangered Jews all over the world by the Jewish people and the Jewish land of Israel finally having true sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, finally having true sovereignty in Gaza, resettling Jewish communities and making more Jewish communities in Gaza, ensuring that all Arabs who support killing us leave Judea and Samaria and Gaza. And it's also Israel, the Jewish state of Israel, finally applying sovereignty in the desert Negev area, in the Galil, in East Jerusalem, in Afo, in Akko, because the justice system, which I told you before, is responsible for so many deaths. Because the progressive mindset, and I told you about this ruling in 2004. It's just gotten worse. How many times the Supreme Court has stopped the army from doing necessary things to protect us because of its false, progressive, warped Marxist ideologies that have seeped into the justice system. We have to repair all that. And it's also repairing it within sovereign Jewish Israel today because they allow Arab Muslims in Israel to get away with anything because against the warped, progressive thinking within the justice system. We have to solve all that. We will solve all of it. We're at the beginning of the societal process of the Jewish people waking up to demand from our elected leaders to do what is necessary to protect all of us. So we are part of this process right now. And part of the process is not being afraid to say the truth. Not being afraid to say that the Palestinian people are a made-up people created by the KGB in the 1960s. Information's out there. You want it? Ask me, I'll give it to you. I talk about it all the time. I have the videos about it. Two-state solution is not a solution. It's a delusion to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. Say that. Say that Jews must live in Gaza in order to protect all of Israel. That Gaza is Jewish. We all sing a song, Ya Ribon Olam, Friday nights, written by the rabbi of Gaza in the 1600s. That's hundreds of years ago. In Bible times, Jews lived in Gaza. Right? That's also part of our ancestral homeland. We're going to be living there once again. Don't let anyone say that Jerusalem, Israel, Gaza, Judea and Samaria don't belong to the Jewish people. Stand up for the truth. When we stand up for the truth and we teach our children to stand up for the truth and we teach our friends here are standing up for the truth, more people will stand up for the truth. And it's also going to protect them because the growing anti-Semitism is attacking their Jewish identity. And they feel attacked because they don't know the truth. They're not for themselves and in order to give it over to anyone else. So people should know these truths. And if people don't know these truths, tell them to follow me at the Pulse of Israel. Signing off from our beautiful, ancestral, eternal homeland, the land of Israel, in our beautiful, ancestral, biblical, and indivisible capital, Jerusalem, since King David's time. If you are not yet a subscriber, go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. To support our work and help us get these videos seen by many more people, click on the donate button every once in a while on pulseofisrael.com. In the meantime, shalom everyone. Thanks for watching. And remember October 7th. Don't remember about what happened to those innocent Jews in order to feel sorry and in order to try to get empathy and compassion from people. Tell it to people and tell them this is why we're fighting. To get rid of this evil that exists in the world and to stop it from it coming to you in America and France and Britain and Australia and Canada. That's why we're fighting. It happened to Tali Chatuel and her 4 daughters in 2004. It happened to 7-month-old Shalhevet Pas, who was killed by a sniper in Hebron 18 years ago. It happened October 7th to 1,200 innocent Jews. This is the evil that exists within the Arab Muslim world. And remember what happened on October 7th in order to let people understand this is why we're fighting, and we're going to not end this fight until we end that evil to never harm us again. Am Yisrael Chai. Thanks for watching, everyone. Shalom.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.